are starting like right away. We're going to do a bit of a few introductions, and then we hit right in conversation for today. So she'll go up with me. Let's go to the next slide to give people an idea of how we are starting. You can see the agenda for this evening. But first of all, we're going to be starting with introductions. So welcome everyone. We want you to introduce yourself in the chat box. Where are you joining us from? What's your name? Where are you joining us from? And if you have a story behind your name, what story did your mom or your dad tell you about your name? Rex, Emma is joining us from Bayelsa State. Thank you, Rex. Bolanle is joining us from Ibadan. Afola Shade is joining us from England, from UK. Thank you. Adedoyi is joining us from Lagos. Sophie, good evening, everyone. I'm Sophie Neji, joining from Lagos. I don't think I have any story behind my name, but I do know that Sophie means wisdom, and I really love my name. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi, my name is David Adetuji, joining from Ibadan. Great. Leye Adegboye, aka Ambassador, joining from Lagos. Thank you, Ambassador, for joining. Emmanuel Luca, joining from Damaturu, Yobe State. Thank you. Adetoke from Ibadan. My name, as it implies, Pampered Crown. According to reports, I was pampered being the first grandchild. Interesting. So let's give it up for Adetoke. Okay, Oluwasegun Adeleke here. Good evening, everyone, from Ado Ekiti. My parents say I'm a child of destiny. Interesting. Give it up for Adeleke. Japo Oluyide. Good evening. Joining us from Ilorin, Kwara State. Fantastic. Omokorede Sunday says he's joining us from Lagos. His name, Omokorede, means my child brings wealth. There are many wealthy people here. Nice, 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 nice. Okay, Favor Okpeyemi. My name is Favor from Ibadan. Thank you. Aderonke Adiola. Good evening, everyone. Joining from Ibadan. My name means Crown has found something to pet. Very nice. So Crown has found something to pet. Nice. Okay, so we're running along now. So this webinar is one of the value-adding content for students enrollees on the audio drama bundle course. It is an all-encompassing 3-month course, story development, script writing, production. Now, this webinar is free, but we have 2 more for students enrolled in our course. That is the audio drama bundle course. It's a 3-month course. They have just finished the first course this February. So this webinar is actually supposed to be students who paid for that course, but we decided to open it, to the public so that a lot more people can benefit from it. But of course, the next 2, if you want to be a part of that, you have to hit us up, call us and chat with us. Next slide, please. All right, so these are the faculty member of the Everything Audio Theater under the DBC BZB Media. My humble self in the middle, I am the lead instructor. My assistant creative lead, Tokumbo Dada, who is also a faculty member, supporting with the students, training and all of that. And then the tech gentleman who is behind the scene, helping us to move this slide. Next. I want to see us click on the emoji of clap to make, to give our guest speaker a rousing welcome. We're already welcoming her because, again, we say we want to keep the time. She is Mrs. Data Fido, the Executive Director, African Radio Drama Association Development Communications Incorporated. She comes with over 25 years of designing and producing development media content, having reached over 50 million people in Nigeria who have been positively impacted by her organization's strategic storytelling through social and behavioral change radio dramas and other development content. I tell you, ARDA has done so much in the area of producing amazing stories, storytelling, lots of story across radio stations in Nigeria, other cuts across the northern states, the eastern states, the middle belt, the southwest, it had as people everywhere. And I'm one of the, proteges of ARDA.
Okay, so welcome everyone to this webinar. It's my extreme pleasure to welcome you to this very short, very short but fantastic webinar. Your host, ARDA-DCI, has been working on this for a while. And so I wish her every success. And all of you who have signed on, I hope you get something valuable and that your whole day or your whole evening is not wasted. Okay, so we wanted to talk about the art of storytelling and how to write for the ear. Basically, this is a session we planned for people who are interested in writing scripts for radio, for audio. Okay, so it takes a special kind of person to write for audio because there are different kinds of media, of course, as you know. We have TV, you have television, film, and you see people, you see the actions and so on. So Adam is on TV. Okay, so this is the person who is acting the role of Adam. And you can see everything. You can see the location he's going to and everything that's happening, you can see it. So sometimes there's no dialogue. So let's say Mr. Adam, he's on your screen on TV or in a film. So you see this person moving through locations. He gets into a car, the car moves and all of that. You see everything. So for TV and film, you look at the screen and it tells you the story. Even when the people are not saying a word, you can see what is going on, right? If you are reading a novel, you can read about what is going on, about the person and all of that. But when it comes to radio, which is an oral, an oral medium, it's audio, just the ears. So that's the difference. You have a radio program or something that's strictly audio is different from all of those ones because it just depends on just the hearing, just what you hear. So you imagine everything else from what you hear. Okay, so there are people amongst you here who want to take on the challenge of writing for the ear, which is more or less a way of saying you're writing audio materials. So let's first talk about storytelling, because if you're doing a radio drama, the story is, in fact, not only radio drama. If you're even doing a film, the story is always very important, right? So for most of us Africans, we have a tradition of storytelling, our oral narrative traditions. I don't know anyone here who hasn't heard folk tales from our culture, from our various cultures. I grew up actually being educated at home by our oral narrative traditions, our folk tales, our history, our heroic tales, and so on. And our folk tales can have animals as the protagonist. You can have people. You can have fantasy things, fantasy people, fairies, all kinds of demons and witches and whatever you can imagine. But the stories are told, very, very interesting stories, and so that we can learn something from that. So there's didactic elements to our folk tales. They call children from everywhere and say, come and listen to a story. They don't say, oh, come, let us educate you. They say, come, let's tell you a story. And then when we're seated, this auntie or grandma or somebody would tell us these very, very interesting tales. And then at the end of it, we'll learn things from it. So the same stories can have different elements, different values and different topics for us to learn. And that's how we grew up. And now in my work, I find that, again, we're looking at how we can marry entertainment and education together in some of the radio dramas that we do. And that is what I wanted to talk to you about. The fact that we, from our own oral narrative traditions, we have now moved to the principles of entertainment education. for social and behavior change. All right. So in our oral traditions, we have different ways of announcing that we're telling stories, and that's why we borrowed the story from story, right? I don't know how you say it in Yoruba, but my language will say he, and then the audience of listeners will say ha. Hausa, they say gatana. I can't remember how they answered my language will say he, and everybody says ha. Okay, so you can unmute yourselves and answer. He.
Ah.
Say it again. He. Ha.
Ah.
Okay, so Hausa, gatana. Yoruba.
Hello.
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 Thank you everybody for participating. Let's go back now. So yeah, once we say the opening story, everybody's expecting a good time, a good storytelling time. So my question is, what makes a good story? Okay, what are the elements of a good story? Okay, so basically, it doesn't matter where the story is told, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Korea, whether it's in China, whether it's in Europe, wherever stories are told, people expect a story that is compelling, that resonates with the listener, with the person who's hearing the story. Okay, you want to go for the heart. You want whoever is listening to be invested in your story, so to have an emotional experience, because when they have an emotional experience, then they can invest their time and effort in listening to the story and how the character, what is happening with the character. And so it's important when you are telling a story to make sure that you create a story around a character that everyone can care about. Okay, so again, what kind of stories do you suppose make people care about a character? So you have to think about your theme, and there are many themes, and these are human interest kind of stories. Okay, themes of human interest, and I'm looking at on the slide, you can see some of the things I have put down as human interest themes. Okay, so you have love, you have hatred, right? You have stories about revenge. You have like family feuds that some people don't even know how it came about. You have rag to riches, Cinderella type stories. You have adventure stories, and those ones have tropes of people coming of age, people going on personal journeys. Little boy, by mistake he climbed a truck and went to sleep. By the time he woke up, the truck had been going for some hours, and he doesn't know where he is. And the next thing, they bring him from his village in somewhere, let's say in Kontagora. The next thing, he's finding himself in Kaduna on his way to Lagos. So how does he thrive in that situation? What are the things he goes through? So he goes through a personal journey, which is a physical journey, but it's also going to be a coming of age story, because he's going to move from there. How does he fight his way back, if ever, back to his village? What does life dish out to him? Then you have quests, where some people are on a kind of journey where they're going to find something. They're going to find truth. They're after truth. So they're on this journey, and that this journey can be emotional. It can be physical. So then you have people who are overcoming difficulties, and they thrive against all odds kind of stories. And then you also have mysteries, mystery stories, like who did it? Like somebody is shot dead in this place, and everybody is being accused of it. And some people are being accused, but they're claiming they are innocent and all of that. So who did it? So you do the investigation of who did it. And then, of course, there are stories like good overcoming evil. That's a very, very Nigerian trope, that we like that. We like if a story has somebody is doing evil, but he doesn't get away with it. That's the kind of stories we like. So again, when you are going to tell a story, you ask yourself, who's your audience? Who are you talking to? So you try to make sure that culturally speaking, and just in terms of the kind of things that resonate with them, that you stick to those kind of themes, and then you also tell those kind of stories. Like I said, all of these themes that I mentioned, they are all very, very universal. As they're human stories. Even when you write about animals or fairies or what do you call those kind of tropes, fantasy. You come back to those same themes always. So you have maybe a love story. Boy meets girl, and then they fall in love, and that's like a very common trope. Then it goes on. Usually there will be somebody, a third party, that will come in and try to mess it up for them, or a situation that will come in and mess it up for them. Situation could be lack of money, somebody lost their job, so it depends on how you want to tell your story, but you stick, borrow from any of these ideas, any of these themes, and then you create your own story from that. You create your own original story from that. Now, if you see, I gave a lot of examples for Shakespeare. Now, Shakespeare himself didn't make up most of these themes. These themes existed before him. Greek mythology has most of these themes: love, hatred, star-crossed lovers, jealousy, betrayal. Those are normal human behaviors, and you can never go wrong when you choose any of them to tell your story. I also mentioned that normally everything will be going well until there is a struggle for your main character, for the protagonist, so there will be a tension or conflict, so this conflict is the glue that binds, is the bridge actually that binds a good story together. So if you have a story of two people met and they became friends, and then they go on and become lovers, and so on and so forth, let's say, as an example, where else would that story be going? Everybody knows that trope. So what are you going to do with that story? You have to bring in some elements of conflict. There has to be tension. There has to be something that will make them struggle. Otherwise, people can as well just go home and rest, right? So you have to build an element of conflict, in order to move the story ahead, to make it worth our while, to make it for us to be listening to it. Okay, so think of that. So whatever story, whatever theme or trope you decide that this is where you're going, your story will be headed. You have to create tension and conflict. Okay, and the conflict is to serve, to make sure that our character, grows. That he struggles with some elements, some issues, some challenges, but does he overcome them? Does he not overcome them? So the more conflicts he has, the more we are invested, because we want to know how he's going to carry himself, how he's going to be able to come out of those issues. And conflicts, I can tell you, there's conflicts can be of different kinds, and there are about 3 different kinds that I know, that I use in my work. And there's internal conflict. Internal conflict is one that you have within yourself. Okay. External conflicts are like the example I gave, like some jealous person, comes in and tries to mess around and, trouble you. Then there's also fate, the one we call fate, So 3 kinds of conflicts. Let me give you an example of an internal conflict. An internal conflict is, say, in one of our dramas, we had something like that. This little girl, she lives with her aunt and uncle, and things are really hard for them. The uncle had lost his job. He was a driver. He lost his job. The aunt used to be a petty trader, and they have children. So for a long time, like, the children are not going to school because there's no money at home. Sometimes they go to bed without food. So she had just got a job. This little girl, this teenage girl, had just got a job selling, what do you call these things? Recharge cards for someone. So they have a small umbrella. She sits under it and she sells recharge cards. So one young man just came in his very posh car. He was driving past. He just reversed, ran out of the car and said, "You have recharge card of this network?" She said, "Yes." He bought it, gave us some money. He was on the phone the entire time. He got the recharge cards and then he rushed back into his car, drove off. After he drove off, she looked down on her table and she sees a little, what do you call it? A purse, a man purse. And she now runs after him, but he had left. She opens it and there was a lot of money inside of different, what do you call them? There were pounds, there were dollars, there was naira, there was a lot of money. So she was worried. How do I get this money to the owner? But now look at this. She goes home back to her auntie and she shows her auntie the purse. Remember that they don't have money. They don't have food. They don't have money to pay school fees. Children are at home. Now, the morning before she left for work, they had prayed, "God, please do something for us. Give us something. Give us, help us." And so are they going to think, is this the help that we prayed for this morning? Should we return this money? So that is some kind of an internal conflict that this little girl went through. It's like, I've been taught to return things that are not my own. If I keep this money, I'll be a thief. However, just a little bit of this money can make us eat today. What should I do? That's an internal conflict, okay? When you struggle within yourself to know what to do, whether to do the right thing or to do the wrong thing. And there's no judgment here. It's just you are in a situation where you have to make a choice. Should I go this way? Should I go that way? Now, for external conflict, that's very, very common. Very, very, that one is not hard to do. So I'm not going to spend any time on it. But again, I told you, boy, girl meets, they are in love. Girl tells her best friend, without realizing that the best friend has always crushed on the guy. So then, she feels jealous. That's this friend, so-called friend. She feels, well, let's not even call her so-called friend. She has been a good friend until now. So again, she can go through an internal conflict of hers. Like, is what I'm going to do, is it right? I love this guy. How come he didn't notice me and he noticed this girl? I'm even finer than her. And we can go anyways. But then she now, because of her jealousy now fuels all kinds of things that she does to try and separate these two. So she can lie to the guy, she can cause some chaos and problems, and those can be the external conflicts. Those kind of conflicts are very, very easy to find. The third one is fate. Fate can give a conflict in ways that the character, the protagonist, has nothing to do with what happens. I guess in many cultures it's called destiny. It is called bad luck. I don't know what to call it, but let me give you an example. So say a young man, he's always wanted to be a footballer. In fact, he's not very good at academics, but he's really, really good at sports. So all his life, he's just been hoping that one day somebody will see him and sign him up for a good club, So he keeps on working hard at his sport until somebody invites him to the club, where they are picking people or whatever. So he's very, very happy. He prays, everybody prays, around him prays, and he goes for this, he goes for the trials. I think that's what they call it. So during the trials, in fact, they pick him. Not only did they pick him, they sign him on. They offer him such a huge sign-up bonus and, weekly payments, that money that he had never even imagined in his life. He returns home and he tells his family and his best friends, and everybody is so happy. Everybody, of course, has their wish list, and he's such a kind-hearted person that everybody says, I'll do it for you. Once I get my money, you are the first person I'll do it for, So his family, they're poor, but immediately he's envisioning building them a house or buying them a house and improving their status, improving their lives, and so on. So, that day, one day, his friends, school friends and everybody, they say, oh, we're organizing a party for you. In fact, he has a girlfriend that he's about to marry, and right now there's nothing stopping them. So she says, you know what, I need to go shopping for and all of that. So she's traveled somewhere to go and buy stuff. You can make your story as fantastic as you want, and this is happening in his life. And then what do you know? Friends say, oh, let's go partying, let's go and have have something, to celebrate this wonderful news. And he didn't want to go, but even his mom says, people have set up and contributed money to take you. Go, can go and then come back quickly and all of that. He goes, and then they have fun, they had drinks and everything. And then on his way back, one of his friends was driving. Of course, he was driving drunk or whatever, and then they have an accident, and people died, but he survived. But then his leg was completely bashed and battered, and at the end of it, they had to cut the leg off. So that is tension that comes from faith. It's not something that he himself did. It's not something that somebody else did to him. It was just his bad luck or fate. Okay, so was it in his destiny or not to become rich and somebody? So, and then what would make it an even better story is when we see how he progresses from that point. Okay, so those are the kind of conflicts that maybe there are other kinds, but I'm not sure of it. Maybe there are like what would I call it? Kinds of conflicts around these three main tensions that I've mentioned. Okay, so don't say, oh no, she said it's just three conflicts. No, I wanted to talk about these three that I use all the time, and there are different variations of them. Right? Are you with me, guys? Okay, so okay.
Yes,
All
we
right, so
are.
next slide, please. Okay, so now I just want to talk about, I've given you the structure, so now we go on and talk about how we develop our plots. Plots are the same as stories, okay? So if you remember, I've already talked about this, create an emotional experience. So usually what we always do, you tweak it in such a way that from the very, very first scene, you grab people's attention and make them kind of either like or dislike your characters. You have to. If you don't do that, people won't care enough to listen, to keep on listening. If I wanted to tell you a story about somebody and I don't tell the story, I don't get to the point of why you should care about the person, I would have lost you. You understand? So I say, tell people stories. I've told you about all the universal themes that stories normally work around. So work within the culture, that's obvious. Convey ideas rather than words. Again, don't just talk about something, but instead, let's look at what is happening to people are, like I mentioned, love, hate, jealousies, and all of that. Those are all the ideas that you should show. It's not in words, but in the ways that the people are behaving, right? In their behavior. Again, I say show rather than tell. That's an extension of the last point I made. And use humor, have lighter moments. Sometimes the story can be very, very sad and very, very serious and all that, but still, even in that region, still introduce humor and lighter moments. I remember watching a film once that was so sad. I mean, I had tears in my throat. I was really, really overcome with sadness. And then they introduced a little child that does not like one of the aunts. She's never liked the aunt, and this child's mother was the person that died. So people were like being sorry for the child and all of that. So this auntie tried to reach out to the girl, and the girl ran away. ran from her, rejected and ran from her. And somebody says, she's never liked you. So why why are you touching her? And then the woman just did her face. She did some kind of a face to the child, and everybody around started laughing. And even I, that was sad 1 minute, I started to laugh. So it kind of moved us out of that pit that we're all going into and created a light moment, and I thought, what a nice technique there. So I picked that, for myself. Again, when we are looking at our own work as people who write dramas, or radio dramas, whatever dramas, we want it to do some good. My work as a social and behavioral change communication person, this is why I brought this, motivate positive change. So my stories, I want them to motivate change and positive change. We say, again, when you are developing your stories, you should create trust, because here's what happens. You are telling somebody who's listening to your story to believe you, even though some of the things you're saying are too fantastic, they believe you. They put away their disbelief, for a while, and say, okay, I'll go with you. So even if the story is not really as logical in terms of real life, they are going with you because you have created a new reality for them. So in that new reality, this story you are telling works. So you create trust. You have to create trust by showing them the logic within the story you're telling. I also say that be original, So yes, if we go back to the other slides that I shared with you, we've talked about all those universal themes. You're going to be talking, your story is going to be about one of those themes. Who hasn't ever heard love stories? Who hasn't heard, adventure stories? Who hasn't, so all of those themes are possible, they're available. But what you do with it is what makes it different. That's why we have millions of books, millions of love stories, millions of adventure stories, because every single author, makes it his own. It changes it. It's the same theme, it's the same trope, but they do something to it that makes it original. So that's what you should do also when you are telling your stories. Okay, and then of course, why if I don't say this, I wouldn't be a social and behavioral change expert. So encourage advocacy. So your story should at least tell somebody what to do, how they can, what they should do to make things better in life. All right, so shall we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, I already talked about how we can make our stories original, but just to recap this. So in telling original stories, you have to base your story on the realities of the audience. Okay, so it's good if you are talking, if you bring in elements of their current problems and the things they care about into your story. So you don't make it totally irrelevant. You make it relevant to them. And if you can talk about stories that they like, characters they like and can relate to, that's really good. For me, I used to watch a lot of Nollywood films well, actually, I watch anything, and I listen to stories, and I read stories and so on. So what I've learned is that people, the stories that I relate to and the characters I relate to, usually they behave in a way that resonates with me. And I've looked in Nigeria, for example, a lot of people like certain kinds of stories. They like, even if it's a love story that has tension, that has jealousy and a lot of ill will within the story as the conflict, they always want the conflict to be resolved in favor of the good people rather than the bad people. But that's not reality. That's not always reality. Sometimes bad people get away with it, and the good people lose. But I don't like that. I don't like those kind of stories, but that's reality, right? So sometimes when you are telling stories, you have to try and see how you can tweak reality and, have people get their end, the end that they want. I don't know if you understand me. So again, I say creating realistic characters. Okay, this is the first time I'll be talking about characters. In your stories, there are good people, there are bad people. But human beings are not like that. Human beings are not totally good or totally bad. So in creating characters, you have to make them seem realistic. And that's the only way that they are interesting. If you have somebody who's all good, they're boring, or all bad, we get fed up. How many times would you show you're bad? So we like to see characters that are realistic, that are rounded, and so on. Okay, so, and here I said who live outside the messages. So for example, if you're writing a story about a nurse, her whole life shouldn't be about her nursing career, or a teacher, or a doctor. His whole life shouldn't be about him being a doctor, doctoring and all of that. No, there are other aspects to him. He's a human being. He's a father. He's a husband, or he's a son of somebody. He's a sibling to other people. So what's his life outside of his job? Okay, so one of the mistakes we make is making the job of the person the story. So this is what I mean by making the character different from the job that they do. So the next thing is include unexpected twists in the plot. So we're talking about how you make a story original. So you include an unexpected twist in the plot. So for example, everybody's expecting that these two are going to get married, but you now suddenly make it so they have a quarrel and then they don't marry, and the next thing the person leaves, goes away, and then maybe they are robbed, and then they lose their phone or something, and so they don't have your phone number or address anymore, and so you lose contact even though you were about to get married. That can happen, I guess. So it's your story, so it depends on how you engage, you do that, you bring in that twist and turn. And so this young woman, in anger, just walked out of your house because of this big quarrel, and then on the road she gets robbed and everything on her was taken. She struggles and manages to get away from that place, and then she just loses contact. Okay, these days, you have social media pages and so on. People can still contact you, but let's also throw in the mix that you were never one for social media, so she has no way of contacting you. So you lose contact, even though you are looking for each other. But in the middle of that, she meets somebody who overwhelms her with love and everything, and she marries the person. And you have come to your senses now, and you're now looking for her. And she mentioned the village she comes from or whatever. So you go there and they say, oh, she's married. In fact, we did the wedding yesterday. So those are like, what do they call that kind of love? Star-crossed lovers. So that's the trope of that. So twist and turns, So you go away, and you two, you go marry somebody else and everything. Then her marriage breaks down, or her husband dies, and then somebody tells her, her family tells her that you actually came to look for her right after her marriage. She said, really? And you left your address and everything. So she finds you, but when she comes, you are married, so she has to go back. So those kind of twists and turns can happen. I don't know. We can spend an hour thinking about that. So let's move on, please. So be creative and original. Okay, so you look for the stereotype, and you decide, I'm not going to go for the stereotype. I'm going to change it. So, for example, you have a girl, a woman who fights for herself rather than, the usual trope is a lady in distress. A man will come and save her. A knight in shining armor will come and save her. But instead, you turn it around, and she's actually her own knight in shining armor. She fights for herself. That's it. It's an unusual twist, a new idea. Okay, so next. So create yourself some really good characters, as I said before, who are realistic and believable, because there's nobody that is perfect in this world. We say perfect people are boring. Not really. I like perfect people, but they are very, very few. So for every character, give them quirks and traits, so that they're not just perfect. They have one flaw in them. That helps.